Good afternoon and welcome to the Curveseries booth taking part in the Digital Petroleum Week. We're very happy and honored that we can take part in this online event now that we can't meet face to face like we normally do during this time of the year, during the London IP week. This presentation is going to take roughly 20-25 minutes. Hopefully we will have a little bit of time towards the end for a Q&A session. But to begin with, we have some practical information for you. Some of my colleagues will take part in the chat. Should you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to write them and my colleagues will try and respond as we go along. Should you have any interest further than that, we're also very happy for you to register your interest so that we can reach out to you after the event as well. Firstly, what is Curveseries? Well, Curveseries is a one-stop shop for all your analytics. That's the way you should think of it, that's the way you should see it, and that's what we are trying to achieve. We carry a number of different data, both sources and our own internal data. So all the data that we have is either purchased with rights to redistribute, or we have the rights to redistribute, or we simply mark the curves ourselves as well. We carry OTC swaps going back to January 2012, which means that we carry roughly right now around 9 years of OTC market data, and pretty much the whole spectre of liquid contracts is in our database. In addition to our own data, we also integrate with Bloomberg, Reuters, Quandl, Wind, and our own system ShareXL, which enables your own uploads. But for example, should you need to chart the Platts pricing numbers against some of our numbers, that's possible through the API connection that we've created between Bloomberg and our system. Basically, again, back to it's a one-stop shop for all your analytics. Right. Instead of watching this as a PowerPoint presentation of what our system can do, why don't we try and dive into the program and see exactly how it's going to function. So the program is a Java coded program, which means it needs to be installed on your desktop. And after installation and launching, you'll see a window that looks like this, where you need to key in your credentials and password. Now, for simplicity, I've already logged in and logged into my profile on the app. What you're going to see when opening up is a dashboard type toolbar on the top of the screen, where you have a number of different tabs. Each tab represents a group of charts for easy overview of your markets and what you'd like to look at. Now on the right hand side, you'll see that there's a plus sign out here where you can open pre-existing dashboards. We created a number of different dashboards that is generic to the various markets. So you're likely to find some dashboards in here that is interesting for whatever you're looking at, whether it's freight, whether it's gasoline, or whether it's naphtha or a fuel oil. We've probably created some pre-existing dashboards already. Now for this, I'd like to create a new dashboard. Let's call it Digital Petroleum Week 2021. For this, I've now created a completely new dashboard. So this is all empty. I also just wanted to show you some of the features and functions of the chart area itself. So each chart and each window is you're able to use and move each of them around. You can also move all of them around by right clicking any of them and then moving them into the monitor. You can also auto arrange them back into the right places whenever you've come to the point where it looks a little bit too messy. You can open up each chart and get it and dive into the actual chart area itself. You can also zoom in and zoom out. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do. You can flick to seasonal versus non-seasonal. You do that by keying Control S, or it's also in the function in the actual chart area where you can unflick it to seasonal or non-seasonal. In the chart area itself, you can highlight and change if there's specific years that you don't need to see because they might have been outliers or whatever. You can always choose not to see them. And if it's in a dashboard that consists with a bunch of different charts, let me see if I can find something where we have a lot of history. Like for example this one here where it's I think we have a good 7 or 8 years or 9 years of data here. What we created some functions as well for easy overview of the market, where you can flick in and edit the chart data and then say up here that I only want to see the last 3 lines, and then the rest needs to be a range. So you can change things around like this, where it makes it more easy to view the market and see when the market is trading and is a little bit outlying on where it need or where it could be or should be. If we go back into the empty dashboard that we created, I want to show you how easy it is to use some of the data in our system. So you go in and you create a new historical chart. On the left hand side here you'll see some of the data that we have in the system already. We have some CFTC data, currency data, futures data, so we carry the data from all these exchanges. And for all the data in here that you'll have in here, also Polymer update, we have the data with purchase with rights to redistribute or rights to redistribute, or we simply mark our own curve, like for example we do in the OTC markets, where we have where we're covering all these products, and for all the liquid contracts we have the OTC swaps going back to 2012 January, and pretty much for all the liquid contracts that you have in the markets, like this. Now we also recognize that that when dealing with in the trading world, that majority of the time traders and analysts that like to see their markets at some sort of a spread or an arbitrage or a crack, which very often consists of two different products or 2 different time periods or 2 different regions. So what we enabled and what we created is some simplistic way of using that methodology is to do the spread query. Now the spread query allows you to choose product 1 and product 2 and period 1 and period 2, and any combination you can do. Now the chart types that you can choose are also a little bit different. You can choose the rolling contract, which is going to show you the rolling contract, so say the Q4 contracts, and then show you the Q4 contracts of various years, how the Q4 have traded. That's one of the chart types that majority of the people using our software are using. So because it's frankly very tradable. So for example, if you want to show something like the Brent Dubai, we simply just choose product 1, product 2, period 1 and period 2 of the Brent Dubai. Change the units. It will also create the formula. Since it's all formula based charting that is happening in our system, it will also create the formula. It will also create the chart title, the period, and make it seasonal. Also change the x-axis range, because it's a December contract that we chose, from December to November. The only thing you need to do after that is click save, and it will show you the chart where it's comparing apples to apples. So it's showing you the December contract, how that the December has traded for each year. And the red line here is the December 2021, the blue line would be December 20, green line December 19, and so forth. Now in this case maybe the 2016 was a little bit of an outlier, so we can always just get rid of that in our view. The next thing I wanted to show you was the other abilities that comes with our queries, is that And you can also choose the fly query, where instead of just one period, you have two periods, and then you have 3 periods in this case, where you can do complex charting like this, where for example you are doing June deck June. Now our system will automatically pick up that you're using 2 June contracts, and the second June needs to be the 2022 June. So again, you'll just click on this, and it will have auto created the chart or the formula that's going to pull out this chart for you. I'll click save. Notice that we in this specific instance we're using some if-else statements. This is basically allowing the system to look up the correct charts. Let me explain you in a sec, maybe in a little bit more simplistic form, what this system is doing. So for example, if I'm doing the fuel oil east-west like this, and I want to do that for the Q2 versus the Q3, so as a spread contract. $ton is correct. Let me first show you the chart. What you'll see is that you've got 12 months of seasonal behavior in this chart, because it's starting in Q2, which is starting in the beginning of April and all the way up to the end of March. This is the way that you want to see this contract, but the challenge is that whenever we are entering the Q2 is going to roll to next year's Q2. So how did we change our system so that we could see the chart in a 12-month seasonal behavior? Well, basically we are able to use if-else statements. So in this case, it's this formula is saying that if month is in between 4 and 6, in other words, in the period where the Q2 has already rolled to next year, then use the rolling contract of the Q2, because that's already rolled, versus the rolling contract of Q7, which is the next year's Q3. Otherwise, use the Q2 versus the Q3. This formula basically enables you to see a 12-month seasonal behavior of this chart, which is very important when you need to look for outliers. The next thing I wanted to show you in our charting capabilities is the ability to use forward curves. Again, I go into new historical chart, and if I do something simplistic like showing you the rolling month 1 of Brent swaps, I'll untick the spread portion here, click OK. So this is going to pull out something that looks a lot like flat price. Rolling month 1 of Brent swaps. Okay, so we're getting this into our charting area like that. Now I want to overlay the forward curves. Now how do I do this? Well, you can just go in, simply edit the chart data and say, well, I need a new series here, so I'll add an equation. So in the equation area, you'll see on the left hand side that there's 2 buttons up here. One is for series and one is for curve. Series is historical time series, and curve is the forward curves. So I'll flick it over to curves and look for my crude contracts. Now you can do this with any type of chart that you're doing. Maybe it's a refinery margin, you want to look at the refinery margin as well. You can simply just create it by doing the same things, but then you just have a formula that pulls out the forward refinery margin. In this case, I just made it very simplistic. So we're calling this the forward Brent, like that. So you put that on front, and that's going to pull out the history plus the forward curve. Now it might be interesting also for trade progression and for risk and for other people to see, well, how's the forward curve actually performed over time, because clearly the history is showing what that's done. And we can simply do that by adding a few more lines. So I could do Control-C on the keyboard, V, and say, well, actually, you know what, I want to look at this 30 days ago. I also want to look at this 90 days ago. And lastly, I want to look at this 180 days ago. That way you can easily pull out a chart like this that shows you the trade progression and the change from a contango market into a backwardated market now that we are a little bit higher on the flat price area. And you can even say, well, you know what, I don't really need to look at the history, I just need to see how the performance of the forward curves have been over time, in order for this to happen. Maybe to explain a trade, or to understand the shape of the curve. Now, already now I'm creating so many charts that are starting to look a little bit messy, so I can always auto arrange my things like this. The next thing I wanted to show is also going into to the spread queries, where the most recent feature that we launched is the ability to do margins. You see that you can also do the flyers and the condors as we discussed, but you can also here do margins. So let's say I wanted to look at the rolling contract of, say, a Q4 European margin. I simply just choose it in the spread query, whatever I'd like to look at. I want it to be related to the dated Brent, and I can even change the yields. These yields are okay. I click OK, so it's going to auto create everything for me here. So it's going to pull out the tickers that is needed for this margin to appear. It's also going to do the conversions into barrels like I asked it to, and you can see that it's also having the yields in the formulas here. Everything again is customizable, so you can always edit the equation and go into the actual equation and start chopping and changing if you need to. In this case it's okay. I just click OK, and it's going to save. So in this case I've now done the forward refinery margin of Q4 European based on Brent and those parameters and yields that I put into the equation. So this is a little bit of all the functionality that we have. In a lot of time I need to move on into the Excel that we also created for this. So we have a Curveseries add-in as well that looks very similar to the other scenario. The most important thing for you to know in this is obviously it's a way through queries to easily get your data into Excel and to modulate it a little bit more in your systems. So, but I also wanted to show you that since it's a Java coded program, it doesn't interfere with your normal Excel, which means that if you're pulling in something like this where we have the most data, like on the FX, I can pull this out to 1972, which is the furthest back that we have data, and what you'll see when you're creating this query is that it creates the query that's going to pull out the charts, and the only thing you need to do is refresh downloads. And a window will open like this. Now you see it doesn't interfere with your Excel. You can even go and edit in other cells while this is still doing this. Going back into this, wait a few seconds, and we're downloading more than 11,000 rows of data here, and hopefully the system will do it within seconds as this presentation is going on. Like that. So it's pulled in more than 11,000 rows of data. The next thing I want to show you just quickly is that you can also download series, which is giving you the same opportunities that as you had in the other one, where you can basically do your equations here. So it almost becomes an equation or an Excel in Excel, because you're doing equations outside of Excel, but in a more complex manner. You'll also see that in here we have a live OTC function, which is a new feature that we've introduced, where we have some traders and some brokers who are helping us and participating with their numbers. It's both in the Excel version, but it's also in the desktop application, where you can create a live list of like this. That's showing you where all the markets are at any given time, like for example Northwest Europe NAFTA cracks with a very recent period here where it's been active, where you'll see where it's traded. So basically what we've done is that we've taken unstructured ice chat and WhatsApp messages and made it into structured data, so that it flows into our system, both for an easy overview, but also for you to use it in the Excel add-in. If I'm flicking back into my Excel here, I can show you how we then can use the live OTC numbers just by clicking live OTC. Choose a spread query, pick the period that we need to look at for next curve, next quarter, and the period that say the MobJ NAFTA for month 1, and integrate these numbers into your Excel for live updates of where the markets are, and maybe build them into your prices. Well, thanks so much for listening. I think this is all I'm going to have time for this presentation, but we are very happy to take some questions that you might have in a small Q&A session here after the event. Thank you so much for listening in.